guys, here come the dollies. They got fresh sinkers, hot coffee, and the sweetest smile.
Welcome back to the Clubmobile, everybody. We're so happy to have you joining us today.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back.
We are joined by, I'm so excited. We are joined today by the delightful Jana Hamilton Gruber, daughter of Howard Hamilton from the Hundredth Bomb Group, and Gerry Hamilton. Jana, thank you so much for spending today with us.
Thank you. It's really my pleasure.
Thank you. Again, we have been talking about this amongst ourselves for a few months, and we've been incredibly excited to learn about your mother and have her part of our Wives of the Bloody Hundredth series. I think we were just talking about how it's a very full circle moment to now have the third mother of the legs photo. And we get to talk about that. So that's so exciting. One of the first questions I had was, how did your parents meet? And did they get married very quickly because of the war, or was it more of a slow process for your mom and dad?
No, they got married very quickly. My mom was from Sioux City, and she was working as a secretary, and the USO would have these dances. And so she and some other ones who she'd gone to school with went out there, and so she met my dad. And about a week or so later, at some point, he proposed very quickly. And she wasn't really sure. She didn't think she knew him well enough. But she talked to some of his buddies, and they said he was a really good guy. So they got married 3 weeks after they met. Wow. And they went over to across the river to South Dakota in a taxi. And the taxi driver and the Justice of the Peace wife were the witnesses.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's amazing. I feel like the quick proposal and the quick marriage is kind of, I think everybody but Harry Crosby proposed very quickly.
No, I think Harry proposed very quickly, but it was Jean
saying
no. And
he knew Jean for a while, and then he went AWOL to propose to Jean, and she said, "Let me think about it."
Yeah. I think that's the way it was back then, because it was on. They didn't know how long they were going to be there, and they just wanted something to hang on to, I guess.
Yeah,
of
course.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming, Jana, that your dad was in Sioux City to train with the Army Air Force. Am I correct?
Yes, that's right. He was a bombardier.
Yes.
So he was there, and they were only supposed to stay a month, but I guess the weather got kind of bad because this was January of 1943, and so they ended up staying longer until they went to Boise.
Right. How did your mother then meet Jean Crosby and Margaret Blakely? How did they end up living together? Obviously, they knew each other through their eventual husbands. How did it sort of come about that they began living together?
They were classmates in high school.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
yeah. Wow. So they knew each other. Yeah, I'm not sure about Jean Crosby, but I know about the other Margaret, both Margarets. They were classmates.
Wow.
Okay.
That's really, really cool that they knew each other in high school, and then their husbands end up serving together.
Yeah, all in the same
kind of unit. Yeah, in the same capacity.
Crazy,
I think that's really, really full circle. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Well, it is unusual because then people were activated individually, as they are now. But if you were in a reserve unit, for instance, the whole unit goes, and then these are like your brothers and sisters.
Absolutely.
Wow. So, I mean, how long after your mom and dad got married did the wives move in together in Chicago? And do you know why? Like, why Chicago of all places?
I don't know that. Of course, it wasn't that far away, but I really don't know. I know that my mom had job offers. A lot of the secretaries had job offers in Washington, D.C., but she really didn't have the money to get there and to get set up, so they didn't go.
Right. That makes sense.
That does.
Did your mom enjoy living with the other two wives, or was it a case of this is just easier for everyone?
Right.
Kind of convenience
No, I think she did, and they stayed in touch, through the husbands. for many years. I think it was just that after my dad was shot down and he was in the hospital in October of 1943, and he was in there for 3 months recovering. So it wasn't until January of 1944 that he got processed into the POW situation.
Jeez.
And so that's when she found out that he was still alive.
Spent 3 months thinking he was either MIA or KIA.
Right.
That's God, I can't even imagine it.
Yeah.
So there was no pre-information to say like, hey, your husband is injured and in hospital in Europe. It was radio silence until the January.
Right. I think it was somebody got notified her that they had heard his name on a information piece that was in Europe. And that's how actually they found out. I don't think it was a notification right away from the government.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
The fact that he wasn't processed for that, I think that's a revelation for us. We didn't know that. We weren't aware that he had been hospitalized for that long.
Yeah. Well, he was, that's why he was not in the same POW camp as the others. Now in the show, in the TV program, they showed him in the POW camp with the other guys, but that was not the case.
That was not.
He was
Did
actually
you know anyone else in there? Was it just him by himself?
No, I think it was mostly British. It was mostly British.
Oh, okay.
Airmen in there. A few Americans, but mostly British. So no, they didn't know anybody. And it was way up on the coast of the Baltic Sea, very remote. And of course, she couldn't dig a tunnel or anything since it was so close to the ocean, and and very cold.
Very, very cold.
Yeah.
So January 44, your mother finds out about your father. Does she then, had she already moved away from the two wives in Chicago, or was it a sort of she finds out about her husband and then she decides to leave Chicago?
I think she was still there when she found out, and then she was only getting a letter from him once a month because that's all that they were allowed to write, but she was writing to him frequently. And so I think that bothered her that the others were getting these letters and everything was, A-okay. So this was very much like my mother, for her to just up and join the circus. She was sort of an adventurer. And I guess she was working, she was at a skating rink. Roller skating was very big back then. And she was kind of working, giving lessons and so forth. And so the owner of the skating rink told her that the circus had contacted him to get somebody to join this. I guess there were six. It was a 6-person. Although she had one partner there, so she took that opportunity.
That's the woman in the other woman in some of the pictures you sent us is her partner?
Yes. I think ordinarily it would have been a man partner, but there weren't able-bodied men.
They were all
available. So she was quite a bit bigger than my mom. And my mom probably didn't even weigh 100 pounds.
Yeah.
She was very tiny.
I think the circus story is one of Gabby and I's favorite stories that we've found through doing this pod. It was very much a revelation of Gabby, who told us? Was it Rebecca that told us that Gerry had joined the circus?
Yes, I think it was Rebecca had sent us a couple of letters that her mother had written to Harry. And one of them was that Gerry left, and she's asked us to, either forward her mail, and she's joined the circus roller skating. And I said, that can't be right.
That's not.
I said, we
join the circus.
The circus? I said, maybe Jean misunderstood.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
No, I was very surprised. And then I was very entertained by it. I said, you know what? That is really one way to keep your mind occupied.
Oh, yeah. She said it was very exciting, and they traveled by train from place to place.
Yeah.
And she got to know a lot of different people. But she did have, she was injured in a train wreck, and the car turned on its side, and she injured her leg. And so that's why she stopped at that point. And she went to live with her dad for a while, and then she went to live with my grandparents, my dad's parents in Kansas. Yeah.
How long was she in the circus then? Was it about a year?
I
Probably.
really don't know. I really
Okay.
don't know. Yeah.
That's horrible. That a train wreck that
Yeah.
literally cuts
Yeah.
off your livelihood. That's crazy. So you said that your parents could only be in contact once a month when your dad was in the POW camp?
Yes, he could only write once a month.
Right. Did
I
your mum
guess through
keep
the
any of the letters, or was it sort of a case of she just
I have seen one, but I don't think I still have it. And my grandmother told me that whenever he wrote to her, it was like, everything's fine,
Yeah.
no problem,
Yeah.
don't worry about us. But I guess she knew maybe from other people that, they were not getting enough to eat,
Hmm.
and that kind of thing. So, because they
Yeah.
were, as officers, uh, they did not have to work. And so they only had like 800 or 900 calories a day in their
Jeez.
diet. So
Yeah.
he had lost a lot of weight.
Mm.
But they did have little gardens and things like that they worked at.
Right.
Okay.
I suppose as well that the letters were very censored in
Oh
terms
yeah.
of what they could say and what they couldn't say.
Oh,
Um,
yes. Hmm.
I feel
that
like
must have been
even
extremely
even more so
difficult for
than the
everyone.
censor, even more so than the military censor, I would
Yeah.
imagine.
Even more so
Yeah,
than
yeah.
the regular one.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I was just trying to ponder like once a month. And I think they only gave them like one sheet of paper too when
Yeah,
they
it
would write
was
a
a
Something
letter.
like
piece of
that.
paper or
So you
card or
either had to
something.
like write it really small, I feel like, and cram it all in, or and it's so interesting to me how your dad would write and say, "No, I'm fine, don't worry about me," when, on the other flip side, it's she's worried about him. She's worried about her
Mhm.
husband, and he's like, "No, I'm fine. Don't worry about me."
Yeah,
Because to
Yeah.
him, he's like, I have to make sure my wife doesn't worry. I have to make sure
right,
her
right.
morale stays up. And
And he would
it's
tell her that he loved her and he missed her. Um, so that was good.
aw.
How long was it between your dad being sent home to them reuniting? Was it very instant, or was there like a processing time that they had to take?
Yeah.
Well, I think it took a while. They had to go by ship.
Yeah.
So they had to wait for that. And then I don't know how long it takes to cross the Atlantic. And then they all had to be put on a train, and the train is traveling across the country, until
Hmm.
he got close to home, I guess, and then he got off.
Yeah.
But he wasn't actually discharged for a couple months because he had to be reevaluated to see
Okay.
if his injuries were affecting his right arm.
Right.
So he had to go to several hospitals. I know one was in Arkansas, which I have been to visit that one in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and the other was in Miami. So
Mm.
that summer, I think they traveled around a bit
He was
when
sort
he
of
got
all
home in
over the place with it.
1946.
What was it like for them to have been apart for so long, only married for such a short time before that? Um, how did they get along when they eventually were reunited?
Well, I think they got along fine, but she had worried when he was gone that he would be changed because he was
Right.
rather happy-go-lucky before. But the whole, it was a life threatening situation, and it does change you.
Mhm.
Going to war changes people, and it became much more serious. He had read voraciously while he was in the POW camp, and there were some older fellows there, and they were tutoring him because he had almost flunked out of high school because he, wasn't trying, probably didn't show up half the time. And the only reason he graduated is because he had a good grade in band. But we still had a record uh, of his grades, and he had an F minus in one grade.
Oh, jeez.
I get an F minus, but
Wow.
anyway,
I
so
was gonna say I didn't think F minus was a thing. I thought you just
I
got
know.
to the F and that was it.
That was it. Had to take it
But
less than F.
so in the fall of 1946, so just 3 or 4 months after he got back, he was able to enroll in college and got a
Amazing.
degree in electrical engineering.
So he used the GI
Nice.
Bill to enroll in
Yes.
school and finish his
Yeah.
degree.
Mhm.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Um, did your
Amazing.
dad stay in touch? I know you said your mom stayed in touch with Jean and Margaret afterwards. They would write letters. Did your dad stay in touch with a lot of his crew after? Because
I don't know. I do remember that one time my dad and I went to Washington, D.C.,
Mhm.
and we went over to the Crosby's house. And so that
Yeah.
that evening, he and Crosby, spent reminiscing. And then Jean took me out to go to a movie. I do remember that.
Oh, that's sweet. I love that. That's
Seems
really
that
nice.
Crosby was the one that always seemed to keep in touch with everybody.
It seemed to be the house.
The house, or that he was always moving. Oh, Dan.
Yeah.
Dan Rosenthal said that his father couldn't change the locks fast enough, that Cros was always at the door.
always at Rosie's door, which really tickled us.
Yeah.
Jana, what did your mother do after her time in the circus is finished? So she goes home, eventually lives with your grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
Did she do anything else, sort of roller skating after that, or was that completely the end of?
Well, I think the skating was just, as a pastime.
Mm-hmm.
But she was, she was a secretary, and she became a legal secretary the rest of her life until she was in her 50s, I think, when she became a paralegal. And that was when, that paralegal career was pretty new.
Right.
So, and then she finally, she went to night school at the University of Pittsburgh for 16 years and finally got her degree in Spanish and Portuguese, and she became a legal translator.
Wow.
She really wanted to be a court reporter, but by that time her hearing was going, and so that wasn't possible. So she eventually became completely deaf.
Wow.
Which was tough.
Yeah, I bet. Absolutely.
And then after she retired, and she was about 59 or 60, she proofread books and articles for the newspaper. It was tough having a mother who was a proofreader, because if you wrote anything to her, she would correct your writing or your spelling.
Yeah, I love that.
As if mothers aren't critical enough.
Let's just add another layer to this.
My mother doesn't listen to this, so she'll never know I said that.
Neither does mine. It's fine. We can say whatever we like. Another question, Jane, I really wanted to ask was, how did you feel about the portrayal of your father in Masters of the Air?
I thought it was good, except for the part of the POW camp. But it kind of opened my eyes in a way. He was kind of happy-go-lucky guy there.
Yeah.
And the fellow that portrayed him, I guess he sort of looked alike. He had his hair combed back, and I think my dad did too. That was the fad at that point. In your hair. And I had never seen a picture of him with his hair combed back. But I was happy. I was very happy with the whole Masters of the Air, which is fascinating. And I don't know if you know this, but the part where someone's dangling from the plane right next to the propeller, that was my dad. Yeah.
Wow. He's yelling pull the release, and because he's stuck, someone has to kick the door. Yeah. We also thought that the gold teeth were just a random costume choice.
Yeah.
From Apple and from.
We've wanted to ask if you know. We thought the teeth were literally a costume choice.
We didn't think that.
We didn't know your dad actually had these gold teeth.
I never heard that before. Now, he was in a plane crash in Idaho, and I think that's how the front teeth were knocked out.
Right. Okay.
So I never heard this about the gold teeth. I really didn't.
Was it, who did the interview, Winnie, that we saw? Was it Jim Blakely?
It was Jim Blakely.
Had interviewed a couple of the guys.
Yeah.
And I think it was John Brady said he saw your dad, just tall, lanky guy standing at the bar, and he had these two gold teeth. And I said, oh my God, it wasn't a costume choice. He actually had two gold teeth.
He had these gold teeth. Yeah. This interview is so great because it's just three friends sort of sat around. Yeah, Jana, it's your father and Charles Cruikshank and John Brady, and they're all just sat having a nice drink together, and they pass this microphone around.
I've seen that. Yeah. And they're all probably in their 50s or maybe even 60s.
Yeah, they're at a reunion, I believe, and it's such a great video because it's them for 40 minutes just talking and reminiscing, and that's how we figured out that maybe the teeth were not a costume choice, but it
well, at that point he had a regular
had a regular set of teeth by the time you guys.
On the topic of the reunions, did you accompany your dad to any when he used to go?
No, I didn't. My mom did, but I've been to one since then. And that was wonderful. A couple of years ago when it was in Savannah.
Right.
Yeah, that was really a good experience. Very good.
Was that the one where you met up with Rebecca Crosby and Barbara Blakely, and you recreated the picture of your mother's?
The legs picture.
That. Yeah. I love that picture so much.
I think Nancy Putnam sent us that specific issue of Splasher as well, because I think we asked for the picture and then Nancy just sent us the copy of the article. How did that feel? Were you guys sort of reminiscing about your mothers and comparing stories, or was it a very much
No, we did. We talked about our moms, and it was very nice. There was a kind of a kindred spirit there.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that.
Do you stay in touch with the other girls?
I occasionally hear from Rebecca, email, or that's about it. I missed the last reunion because we had a family reunion at the same time, and so I didn't go. Yeah.
Definitely come to the next one. We will be there.
Yeah.
We're so excited that we get to be at
I hope to. Yeah.
In 27. Yeah. We're very excited for that.
I'm saving my money already.
Yeah, we're putting away money already to be able to go. Another question I really wanted to ask was, how was family life growing up with your mum and your dad, a product of the so-called greatest generation? Did you feel like you had some kind of pressure to live up to based on the fact that your dad had been at war and that he had been a POW?
No, and at the time I didn't know a lot about that because he didn't talk about it. But I think my dad never imposed big expectations on me. He always told me he was proud of me and that he loved me, and I was a good student, and it was just kind of a suburban mom, dad, one son, one daughter kind of thing growing up, and so it was fine. It was great. In fact, my older brother's birthday is coming up, and I wrote him a card saying that I think as we get older, we sometimes think more about our memories in the past, because at this point in our lives, the future is kind of a big question mark. When you're younger, you're going to do this, go to school, you're going to work here, live here, so forth. But at this point, you're just kind of, you don't know. And I was telling him that I had really good memories of mom and dad and my brother and myself, because I have two younger brothers, but that was a bit later.
Right. That's really sweet, though. Did your mother ever, obviously you just said that your dad didn't really talk about his time during the war. Did you know about your mother's roller skating career in the circus as you grew up, or was that sort of something you found out as a revelation later on? Like, you didn't
no, I knew that. No, I knew that. And she would tell me stories about my dad, about what it was like for him there and for her then. And, that he had apparently some PTSD, I guess, for a while.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I got all that information from her.
I'm not surprised that he didn't want to talk about it. It must have been incredibly difficult, and then to readjust to civilian life very quickly afterwards. Did your dad stay in the reserves?
Oh, I was just going to ask that. Yeah.
He did. He stayed in the reserves, and he retired as a full colonel. He was in, I think, 33 years or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So did you guys move around a lot, or did you stay in one place?
We were in Wichita, Kansas, and then my dad took a job in Chile, the country of Chile. He was setting up a PhD program there in electrical engineering, so we moved there. And then from there, we moved to Pittsburgh, and that's where I grew up high school and college in Pittsburgh. And my dad was very proud of the fact that I joined the reserves and later on went on active duty, because he had three sons who did not go in the service. He always joked about that. Yeah.
Would you mind talking about that? Because I find that so interesting as well, that you followed in your father's footsteps. What branch were you
in the
were you
Army.
also
I joined the reserves, and then about a year and a half later, I went on active duty, and I stayed on active duty for almost 9 years.
That's amazing.
And during that time, well, it was the first Gulf War, and my unit was, it was after I got out and went and stayed in the reserves, that the unit that I was in here in Augusta was deployed to Saudi Arabia for the first Gulf War. So we went over there. It was a hospital unit, and we took over a hospital that was for Bedouins. I guess in Saudi they have two armies. They have the army, the regular army, and then there's reserve army, which is the Bedouins. So I had all Bedouin patients, and so I worked on the mother baby ward there with all Bedouins, and that was interesting. And that's why I say that going off to war changes you.
Yeah,
we weren't in, I guess we were technically in a combat zone, because at night we could hear, the missiles and Scud missiles and so forth. So after a while, you kind of don't pay attention to it, but some of them did.
I suppose it kind of becomes white noise after such
a
long time. One of the books we have coming up in our book club is called "And If I Perish," and it's about the army nurses in World War II. And I've read
that. Mm-hmm.
It's excellent so far, and I'm up to a bit like where the first few days of them being in Italy, all this noise shocks them, and they're running into their foxholes with their helmets on and whatever else. And by week 2, they're sleeping through it, and they're only waking up if someone tells them to get into their foxholes. So I can imagine that it at some point sort of becomes background noise. I find that so interesting though, that you were the one to follow in Dad's footsteps, and the brothers weren't.
And then I stayed in the reserves and retired as a lieutenant colonel, and with 24 years. So
wow, that's incredible.
Really cool.
It was a good gig.
Really cool.
Good.
You mentioned that your dad was not a great student, but he was good in music. Did he play anything? Was he
played
musically
the tuba.
inclined? He did.
He played the tuba, but I don't think he ever played anything after that. But he was a big classical music fan, and country and western. So that's a strange combination. But
that seems to be a common trait of some of the men from the Hundredth, is that a lot of them were musically inclined. I know John Brady, Frank Murphy.
Really?
Yeah. And I just find that to be like, I'm starting to think it might have been like a qualification to fly with the Hundredth. So you had to play an instrument or be able to sing a song or something.
Well, the interesting thing about him almost flunking out of high school is that, he came from a poor family, and the war had started, and he went into Wichita with this other young man who came from a very prominent family, wealthy family, and they took some sort of aptitude test, and my dad was accepted and the other young man was not. So yeah. So that's how he got into the program with the pilots and the bombardiers and navigators.
Did he up? Did he enlist before Pearl Harbor, or was it after Pearl Harbor happened?
This was after Pearl Harbor, because he was born in 23. So he wouldn't have been, well, I mean, I'm not sure.
He wouldn't have been of age.
No, he went in first. I think in high school, maybe he went in as a cadet. They had a cadet program.
Okay.
But then they discovered that he wasn't as old as he said he was. And so they discharged him.
Oh,
so okay. At the time when my mom and dad got married, he was only 19 at that point.
Oh, he was only a baby.
Yeah. And my mom was 20. But he had lied to my mom and said that he was 20 also.
Because of course he did. Oh, that's funny. When did she find out that he was not the age that he had said he was? Was that pretty quick? She got it out of him?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Yeah.
That's so funny. That's so funny.
That's so funny. That's so cheeky.
Speaking of music, did your parents share a mutual love of that? Was there a certain song that you hear and it reminds you of both of them that they enjoyed together?
I guess, well, she told me that at one point, I guess before he was a POW, he had written to her about this song that he really liked, and it was Spanish Eyes, I think was the name of it.
Oh,
yeah.
That's so sweet. I really like that.
You know, of course, toward the end, like the last couple decades of her life, she couldn't hear.
Yeah.
So, but she had a wonderful voice. She was a very good singer.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Everybody was so talented in the 40s.
Everyone had like a little niche, and
they had their own little quirk, their own little thing. Yeah. I couldn't carry a tune in a bucket.
No, me either. I think I can. I got very lucky when I was in college and I was taught how to technically sing. One of the final questions that I wanted to ask was, do you have a favorite memory of your parents?
To think about that. When we were living in South America, in Chile, a lot of good memories from that. And we took a vacation, drove down to the south of Chile. I do remember that. We were camping. So I guess that was fun. But, you know, they were very loving toward all of us kids. And so that's good memories.
Good.
Yeah. I can still see my dad in the house that they lived in for, I don't know, 30 or 40 years at the end. And he was in his favorite rocking chair, and he would have this cat on his lap, and he'd call her the old bat. Like he didn't like her, but he was always petting her and all this. So yeah, I can still see him sitting there.
Dads are like that with cats. Dads are, I don't want this cat, and yet they become like soul tied to this pet that they didn't want.
Did you hear anything about the time that my dad was in the hospital from anyone else?
No.
Well, it was when they were had a bombing raid over Munster, Germany. So the plane was shot down, and by the time he bailed out, there wasn't at a very high altitude, and he landed in a tree and was captured and then driven into Munster. He said there was a teenage boy there that was holding a gun on him the whole time.
Yeah, I think that's in Murphy's book. I believe he read that from Frank Murphy's book. That I believe was it Charles Cruikshank that rode with him, and there was this teenage boy who didn't speak a word of English, just holding this gun over.
When it got to the hospital, and the town was 90% destroyed during this raid. And so, of course, they were at a military hospital, and the surgeons operated on all the Germans. And then they said, well, we're done. And the hospital administrator, his name was Willy Volley, and he had been in the Eastern Front, but caught hepatitis, and they sent him back to his hometown of Munster. And he did not speak any English, but he persuaded the surgeons to operate on them. And so he saved his life because he had a big wound on his back of his right shoulder. It was a 20 millimeter mortar, and his lung was collapsed, and his collarbone was broken. And then during his convalescence, this hospital administrator would bring them books or something he found in English, and he didn't let them interrogate them, didn't let the SS interrogate them until they were better. So they kept in touch all this time.
That's amazing.
At that time, Billy was not married, but later on he did marry, and he married a woman who was an English translator at the Nuremberg trials. So when this book came out, the book by I'm blocking on his name. The book about that day when the plane was shot down. I'll think of it in a minute. So she was asked to translate it into German. And so they saw his name in the book, and she contacted the author and said, how do I get in touch with Howard Hamilton? And so they got in touch, and my parents went over to visit them, and they came to the US and visited my parents. And so it's a lifelong
really
friendship
wonderful.
there. Yeah.
That's amazing.
On that, did your dad ever consider writing about his experiences in a book, or was it very much a case of I am never talking about this again unless necessary?
No, I think he didn't have a problem talking about it, but he did not write about it. I just remember the author's name was Ian Hawkins.
I think that's on our list, Gabby. It's on our ever-growing pile of, because I recognize the name.
The list keeps getting bigger, but we'll get through it.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually.
That was all about that one day, and
yeah.
So, and my dad was mentioned in there many times.
I really wish that it had been kept in the show. Like all of this stuff could have been extremely good, like special effects, and I feel like the viewers missed out on a lot of literally the air time by not keeping that.
This is why we keep digging into things, because I'm like, but what happened there?
Yeah, what happened next?
What happened after that? So your dad went back to Munster later in life?
We did, and my husband and I were stationed in Germany, so we went up to see Willie and Edward as well, and then they came down to visit us. Yeah,
that must have been something really, I mean, special, and also kind of really emotional to be in the place where your dad almost was either almost lost his life or was saved. I mean,
well, he really owed his life to Willie. Yeah.
That's such a sweet story.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Oh, we're so happy to have you.
So much for joining us.
This was so much fun and so special.
We love getting to talk about these people, and we love getting to talking about your parents and then talking to you and the other kids. It really is it's very, very refreshing, and it feels, we feel very honored that you want to share the story with two people who have zero familial relation to any of this. Just two people who are extremely interested and want to keep the story alive for future generations to dive into.
Thank you for trusting us with this.
Yes,
well,
yes, absolutely.
That's it was a special generation. It really was, and
absolutely,
and it, of course, it helped us as the kids to develop our character and our value system.
Yeah.
And we really hope to carry that on to everyone else as well.
I think that some of those values could stand to be reevaluated and looked at again today, honestly.
Absolutely.
I think old school is, not to sound very, old school is the best school, I think.
Agreed.
Well, they went through some tough times because this was right after the Depression. And so then you get into the war, and of course they had deprivations of some food and so forth in the U.S. Food stamps, or I guess they call them food stamps. Yeah. So all those stories about what life was like back then.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
It speaks to, like, the Victory Gardens. We were talking about that last week, why Victory Gardens were so prevalent, and it's because after the Depression, that was the fastest way to
grow your own food,
and maybe not rely on your ration book so heavily if you grew your own fruits and vegetables.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Jana, for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much. We had a wonderful time chatting, and we hope that you guys all enjoyed this one.
We sure did.
Yes, we did.
As always.
Yes, I did. Thank you. I was a little bit nervous.
We did great.
Yes.
You did absolutely wonderfully. Thanks everyone again for listening.
Yes.
And we will see you next time.
See you soon, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.